Welcome to Onslow County Today. I'm your host, Lisa Whitman-Grice, and we are coming to you today from the Onslow County Government Center, overlooking this beautiful springtime scene. Joining us today on Onslow County Today will be some special guests. We'll be talking with Kim Bailey and Tamika Johnson from the Department of Social Services. We'll also talk with LaQuisha Cadwallader and Lauren Santoyo from the Onslow County Park and Recreation Department about an extravagant event coming up. We'll visit with Greg Isievich with Onslow County Animal Services. We'll also talk with Victoria Reyes about Public Health Week at the Onslow County Health Department. And finally, we'll talk with Melissa Huffman from Onslow County Cooperative Extension, who's bringing some special guest herself. Thank you as always for joining us for Onslow County Today. Welcome back to Onslow County Today, and joining us now are Tamika Johnson and Kim Bailey with the Onslow County Department of Social Services. Welcome to you both, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Now, we know that this is perhaps one of the most important milestone months for our social workers here in Onslow County. Kim, tell us, what are we sort of recognizing or acknowledging this month?
Well, April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and so really it's just to acknowledge children in our community and ways to prevent abuse and neglect of children.
Tamika, you know, as we were getting to know you, because you're new to Onslow County Today, what really this month is about, and when you and Kim talked about coming here to talk with us today, what was it that you really wanted to be able to share with our viewers?
Definitely about child safe sleep.
Now, child safe sleep, you know, we don't think about, certainly it's not what we would consider abuse, but it is that best care and that those first steps. When we bring that little person home, Tamika, they do give you some instructions. Yes. But then you still look at them and think, oh boy, this is my person now. And that first step is just how we lay them down to sleep each night. So Tamika, tell with us, what are those best practices for making sure that baby gets a safe sleep and that we can sleep safely?
So definitely ensuring that the baby has appropriate sleep quarters. So a bassinet, a crib, a pack and play. While we like to cuddle with our children, we do not recommend sleeping with your child at all. We want to ensure that they're in their bedding, that there are no soft objects, no toys, no stuffed animals, about all those covers. Make sure those are not in there. We also want to avoid overheating the baby, putting extra blankets on them and things like that. And definitely not falling asleep or placing your baby on a couch or a chair to sleep.
And then of course, you know, when we think about, I mean, my children are in their 20s, and when we set up that nursery, it was all about how cute the layette could be and the little padding around the crib. No more.
No more. All that goes away. We want to have a tight crib sheet in there, place your baby in there. They also make those onesies that are for sleep time that zip up. Those are really good to keep the baby warm.
And then what about positioning?
Backs to sleep.
Backs to sleep.
Yes.
So on our back, in our sleep onesie, not a bunch of covers, correct, not a bunch of cuddles and buddies in there. And for sure, they always figure out how to turn over and how to flip and how to scooch far earlier than you could ever imagine, correct?
Absolutely, they do.
So that's why even a big deep chair, even a couch, not a great idea.
Not a good idea. at all.
Okay. So our first step is just knowing those fundamentals of safe child care, knowing, you know, reading what we can, being prepared, and making sure that they are sleeping safely. So if they're safe, we can sleep a little more soundly.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, Tamika, thank you for sharing that. Now, Ms. Kim, we're going to shift gears a little bit, because when we talk about that they don't always come with an instruction manual, we can talk about the basics. We know we're learning better about sleep. We know, you know, formula, but it's not always just the physical care. It's the challenges of caring for bringing that new person into your household, and it's not easy.
No, parenting is not easy at all. And you're right, children don't come with instruction manuals.
And each and every one is different.
Oh, absolutely.
And you can be on your first child or your fifth child. And what you discover is these are not the same person. So talk to us about what you all do at DSS to protect children, because it's not easy.
Well, of our social workers, we have, right at this time, approximately 21 on staff. And throughout the last year, those social workers and assessments, they have assessed 1,832 families for abuse, neglect, and dependency. So what we do is we provide services to those families. We're working one-on-one with those families to leave them a little bit better off than when we found them. We help families to identify their own support networks and their strengths. I think one of the biggest things is for us to recognize that child abuse, it is preventable, but it's also a community issue. It's not just a family issue, a DSS issue. That's why education is really important, especially as Tamika had mentioned regarding safe sleep. It's such an important aspect in learning, and so we have parenting classes through peers, through One Place. They're also offered to our military families on base.
You know, and you mentioned that, you know, the idea that we're a military community, and oftentimes when we're in a less transient community, you may have multiple generations. You may have grandma, great grandma even, who can be there, you know, aunts and uncles who, when you're surrounded by family, you may have that person to call on, or you may have that sort of that voice of experience. But in a community like ours, you may be far away from family. And so we have to be that family for our community members, be that support, be that voice of sort of recommendations, you know. It's tough being the grandma who says, maybe baby, let that child sleep on its back. Let's try these things. So you all bring that to the community. With your parenting classes and with your support. But I want to go back to that number, Kim, because that is sort of takes you aback. You have 21 social workers who work with your Child Protective Services, and you had almost 1,100 calls in this last year?
We had over 3,000 calls, but the 1,832, those were those accepted reports.
So let's talk about that as well. Tamika, one of the things that we talk about is that it takes a village to raise children in a community like ours. So Kim said you had 3,000 calls. Of those, 1,800 had some additional follow-up action. For our community members who might be watching and say, 3,000 calls, how does that work? Who calls? When should I call? Let's talk about being part of that village and that neighborhood, part of being that community and that support. Who should call and when should call? When should they call?
So if you see something that's troubling or questionable to you, you can definitely make a phone call. If you see a child that's in danger, if you have knowledge of it, definitely to give a call.
You know, what if I'm that neighbor who says, I don't want to get involved, or I don't want to cause trouble for that family, and maybe I didn't see what I thought I saw. What's your best advice?
Call.
call.
It does take a village, so you calling, you can remain anonymous, so you can at least get that information out so we can go and assess the family.
So we want to call, and who do we call, Kim?
You're going to call our Child Protective Services intake departments, and that phone number, 910-219-1955.
And what are those next steps? So I've seen something where I get that little intuition, that little nagging feeling. I call, and then what are next steps? As you say, I can call anonymously, so my part is over, but what happens next on your end?
So when a person calls a social worker on the phone, they're going to ask them questions. And there are a lot of questions because we're trying to gain the facts that we need to decide whether a report needs to be screened in or not. Okay. And screened in means that we're going to provide services to that family. We're going to assess the safety and risk to the children within their home environment. So after a report is accepted, then what a reporter can expect is that they will actually receive notification, unless they choose to remain anonymous, that we are involved with the family.
Okay.
At the time of case decision, they will also receive notification. But typically an assessment social worker, and please know that we have 29 possible positions, but 21 of those that are currently filled.
Sure.
So they are going to assess the safety, risk, and well-being of children. They are going to provide services to that family, whether it be mental health, substance use related referrals and services, just to help families become stronger than when we first became involved.
You know, I think that's one of the things too, that there's oftentimes that misconception that if CPS is involved, they're immediately going to show up at your door. And Tamika, you're nodding your head, you know what I'm going to say.
I do.
Is that CPS shows up and they're taking my children. But that's not your goal.
Not at all, not at all. Our goal is to assess the family within the home and to provide services for them.
And as you say, Kim, it's about making families stronger. It's about making families stronger with education, with support, and building that network so that our families are stronger here in Onslow County. Now, you all are wearing your blue. I'm wearing a little bit of blue today. In April, we're going to see a lot of blue. Why is that, Miss Tamika? What is this blue representing for you all to really show the community?
It brings awareness to child abuse prevention.
Now, it's not just blue. When we get out there, is this not pinwheel season?
It absolutely is. Yes, our pinwheel gardens. Yes.
Your pinwheel gardens are beautiful. And in the springtime, it is perfect because that springtime breeze just spins and again, it calls your attention to your building where you all work. My favorite part of your building now is, we know, and Tamika, did you work in the former facility, or are you new to CHS relatively?
Relatively new.
Relatively new. So maybe you've heard stories. Your building, your previous home, was not the sunniest of places.
No.
But the CHS building now is bright and welcoming and warm. And then you add pinwheels, and that's pretty spectacular. I would love, as we kind of close out our segment, for you all to share each your thoughts about how we can all work together, not just in April, but always for child abuse prevention, and the value in what our social workers, all of our social workers, bring to our community. So, Kim, let's start with you.
I think the biggest piece is just understanding that DSS is not the end-all and be-all regarding child abuse, that it really does take that village to include our community partners, and education is key, and it can make a difference regarding child safety.
And Ms. Tamika, what about you?
So I would definitely say that if we work together to spread the word on safe sleep, we can protect some babies. You to the world may be one person, but you may be the world to that one person.
And that little person is your world, is your world for sure. So all the steps that we can take, the ways in which we can be more aware about what might be a simple thing as laying them down to sleep for a nap or for the night, maybe part of the night anyway, if it was like my kiddos, but laying them down for the night, doing it as safely in the best way possible, and then knowing that you don't have to know everything, that there are resources out there to help you, Well, Tamika, Kim, thank you both. Thank you for what you do for the children of Onslow County, and thank you for being really such an important part of that village and bringing this information to us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Onslow County today, and joining us is one of our favorite friends, LaQuisha Cadwallader with the Onslow County Park and Recreation Department. LaQuisha, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
And you brought a new friend to join us. Please introduce.
I did. This is Miss Lauren Santoyo. She is our new special events coordinator at Parks and Rec.
LaQuisha, you have a helper.
I do. Thank God.
You do so many wonderful programs and activities, and having Lauren join the family is going to be terrific. We're so glad you're here, and because it's time, Lauren. Springtime is just the kickoff
Yes, ma'am.
of all the excitement that goes on at Onslow County Park and Recreation.
Absolutely.
And we want to talk about especially your upcoming spring events that are centered all around Easter.
Yes.
We should point out, Ms. LaQuisha, that it's a little bit different in years past. So let's give folks the basics. Let's start with, when is your Easter extravaganza?
It is going to happen on April 9th at Onslow Pines Park. We normally do it at our 5 different parks, but this year we're going to kind of bring it together as our Easter Festival extravaganza. So it'll take off at Onslow Pines Park on April 9th from 6 to 9 p.m.
And you know, that might have sort of a funny feel to folks that you're going to have an Easter event at night or in the late afternoon.
Yes.
But what makes it special?
Well, we did that because we want to incorporate our teenagers. So we wanted to do that so they can come out and have fun, and they don't normally like the typical, go find the egg. So we're doing a flashlight egg hunt for our teens.
How are we going to find these eggs with flashlights? Do they glow?
They don't glow, so they have to bring their flashlights.
Have to bring our flashlights,
Yes.
okay?
And they'll be hidden in our trail at Onslow
Okay.
Pines. Yeah, so they'll go with their flashlights and hopefully find as many as they can.
It sounds really cool.
Yes,
It
ma'am.
sounds like a cool event. Now, Lauren, what are some of the other things that are planned around our Easter event other than hunting for eggs with flashlights?
Well, we have a petting zoo ready for the kids, as well as a bounce house and some arts and crafts.
Awesome. So bounce house, arts and crafts, food vendors this year?
Yes.
So food vendors,
Yes.
okay. And then bounce house, food, crafts, flashlight egg hunt,
Yes. Petting zoo.
petting zoo, and of course the Easter Bunny will be there.
The Easter Bunny will be there for plenty of photo opportunities. Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes, ma'am.
So cost to attend this?
There is no cost. It's a free event for everybody. We want everybody to come out with their families, small children, and of course our teenagers. We want them to come out and just have a good time.
So just a really fun evening, really fun twist
Yes.
on a traditional Easter egg hunt with all of those fun activities in association with that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then you have, let me make sure, after all of this is said and done, after we've found our eggs, after we've made some crafts and
Yes.
seen that Easter Bunny, you have Cosmic Dodgeball.
Absolutely.
Now, for folks who are not aware, what is Cosmic Dodgeball?
We turn off the big lights and we set up kind of like a glow in the dark type thing on our tennis courts, and we come out and we play some fun dodgeball.
And Lauren, you've been with Park and Rec about a month.
Correct.
Have they made you aware just how seriously they take their dodgeball?
Not yet, so I'm prepared.
Be ready.
Be ready.
Be
I'll be
ready,
ready.
because this is serious fun.
Yes.
This is serious fun.
Yes, it is.
So following all the Easter fun, Cosmic Dodgeball. And then later on, a little bit later on in the month, you have another big event.
Yes.
Miss Lauren, tell me what is coming up later on in April?
We have our family camp out on April 23rd, arriving at 3 p.m., leaving the day after at 9 p.m. And we'll have movies, s'mores, and fun games.
Now, Lucretia, you all do this periodically, these family campouts.
Yes.
How do the families feel about them? What have they said about this opportunity to kind of be out in nature?
They love it. They absolutely love it. Before the one comes up, they're asking, when's the next one? When's the next one? When's the next one? So they absolutely love it. The families come out, they pitch their tents, and they gather around the campfire for s'mores. We have a movie. It's just a fun time. They absolutely love it.
Now, this is all we should say at Onslow Pines, which is sort of your flagship
Yes.
park site.
Yes.
For folks who don't know where that might be, can we give them some directions?
Yes, it's 1244 Onslow Pines Road. If you know where Harley Davidson is, we're right on that same road. So we'll be there. It's not hard to find. Just look for the Pines.
So you all sort of serve as that connection, though, really, between 17 and 53 Blue Creek Road area.
Yes, ma'am.
So you all are that thread.
Yes.
And you're sort of really almost right in the middle.
Right in the middle.
So easy to find. Now, the camp out, Lauren, is there a fee associated with that?
Yes, it'll be $25 per family.
Okay, and that's for your campsite. Plus, you all provide all the fixing for the s'mores.
We do, and we provide dinner.
You provide dinner as well. So
Yes.
what are we looking forward to? Hot dogs? and-
Hamburgers, hot dogs, chips, yes. And then the next morning at 9 a.m. before everyone loads out, we provide breakfast, light breakfast, donuts, coffee, breakfast bars, and things like that.
The best breakfast for camping.
Yes, ma'am.
So, and this event is going to be held when again, Lauren?
On April 23rd.
Okay, so April 9th is the Easter Festival.
Yes.
And then April 23rd is your family camp out. Springtime, beautiful April out at Onslow Pines Park. It's
Yes.
always beautiful. It's beautiful year round, really, at that park site.
It is.
But springtime is going to be perfect. Of course, you all have such a great social media presence, great website. Can we direct folks, Lucretia, to how to find out more about both of these events?
Yes, ma'am. They can always visit our Facebook page and our website, of course, and visit onslow.recdesk.com to sign up for these events.
Okay, so, and that's the other thing is, probably need to pre-register?
Yes, for the family camp out, definitely pre-register to secure your spot.
All right, so we're going to pre-register to camp out. We're going to hunt Easter eggs, but we've got to remember to bring our
Bring your
flashlights.
flashlight, yes.
And come out and then hang out for sure for some cosmic dodgeball.
Yes, that's a must.
Now, I know that you all are gearing up for summertime. Has registration opened officially for summer camp?
Registration has opened for summer camp. It opened on March 1st,
Okay.
and we are completely booked.
You are completely booked?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes, it filled within 24 hours.
That is
Yes,
awesome.
amazing.
So we're going to know next year, register early.
Yes.
And also, you all are going to come back to visit with me a little bit later on this spring, because then your summer programs begin,
Yes, ma'am.
including the Freedom Festival.
Yes.
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 Lauren, welcome to Onslow County.
Thank you.
Because the fun is just beginning.
beginning.
The fun is just beginning. Again, Lucretia, we want you to give us the main telephone number there at Onslow Pines, so if folks have any questions, they know who to call.
Yes, they can always call 910-347-5332 if they have any questions about any of our events and programs.
Well, we thank you both for being with us today, and we are looking forward to springtime with you all at the Easter Festival and at the Park After Dark Campout. So thank you both so much.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you
Lisa.
again.
Welcome back to Onslow County today, and joining us now is Greg Isayevich with Onslow County Animal Services. Greg, thank you for being here.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
We were talking a little bit off camera a little bit. This is your first time with us here on Onslow County today, but you joined Onslow County's team family when?
In August 2018.
And then a month later, we had quite the season,
Hurricane
did we
Florence.
not?
Yes,
We
ma'am.
had Hurricane Florence, so you all had such a time. I mean, I cannot even tell you how much work that I know you all put into preparation and then helping families, because that was just such a difficult and traumatic time for a lot of our families who are pet families.
Yes.
So first and foremost, thank you
Thank
for
you.
that. Certainly, that was an especially difficult time, but your role in the community is all about public safety. I'd love for you to take a little bit of time just to share with me and share with our viewers, what is the job and role of an Animal Services Animal Control Officer?
Yes, ma'am. So to begin with, we have a total of 9 officers for Onslow County that rotate various shifts. So they're not always on at the same time, but that's our total count. And each day, we take calls that'll come into the animal shelter to dispatch the sheriffs or the local police departments for a variety of things, ranging from, stray cats, stray dogs, to suspected cases of abuse, to animal attacks, and more serious things along those lines. And we take all of them. So the biggest thing is, when the calls come in, whoever's working that day, whichever officers we have on the road, we'll go through and kind of prioritize or triage the calls. And the biggest priorities go first, and we just move down the list till we can get through and get everything done as best as we can.
And when you talk about priorities, certainly the number one priority when there is public endangerment. Talk a little bit about that.
So yeah, public safety is of course our number one goal. So while welfare checks is a large part of what we do and is a larger priority to what we do, all of that gets sidelined if there is an active issue of somebody's being chased by a dog, somebody's actively being attacked by a dog or any sort of aggressive animal like that. And then we also do the rabies control aspect of it. So if there's any sort of wildlife issues, if raccoons, foxes, show up in people's houses or at people's houses and are acting kind of odd, we respond to that as well, and we will help people handle that situation, get those animals removed, and really just keep the public safe and make sure people can walk freely around their own neighborhoods and not have to be concerned about this dog coming out at them or this fox over here acting a little weird or anything like that. So public safety is always our number one priority.
And especially this time of year, I know that in the springtime, we have in the past seen an increased number of cases when it comes to things like rabies. Certainly, that is something as a pet owner that we can take many steps in order to protect the public as well and be a responsible pet owner. And what are those things that we should remember to do?
Absolutely, and it's a very good point. I appreciate you bringing it up. There's only one vaccine for animals, for dogs, cats, and ferrets, oddly enough. In North Carolina, the animal has to have one vaccine by law, and it's a rabies vaccine. Those vaccines are either annual or every 3 years. You can get them from your local vet, but there's also a lot of different outreach programs for rabies vaccines and clinics and local clinics to save some money, because not everybody has a ton of extra money to spend, to go up to a vet, and you pay the visit fees, and it can rack up pretty quick. But the Onslow County Animal Shelter does do a rabies clinic as well, where anybody can bring their pet up and get a 1-year rabies shot for $10, and then you get your certificate, and your pet's good for the whole year. There's also several different rescues in that all over Facebook and that you can find to do low-cost vaccinations, not only the rabies, but also getting into distemper vaccines, Bordetella vaccines, all these other things that are really good just to keep your pet healthy.
So not just vaccinations, but when we take on the responsibility of being a pet owner, a pet family, there are lots of things we need to be mindful of, Greg, whether it be dogs, cats, ferrets, bunnies, whatever it might be. What are those things that we should be mindful of? Because as you say, one of the things is, one of the biggest calls you get are calls about concerns about neglect. People may see their neighbor's pet in the backyard or see it being unattended to.
Yeah.
So talk about responsible pet ownership.
So responsible pet ownership, there's a lot of different facets to it. There's what gets down to it can be kind of opinionated of the best practices, and then there's also the legal aspect of it. So we each have our own opinion, of course,
Sure.
about best practices, but from the legal aspect of it, and what the law and the county ordinance says is tethering is a big issue.
Right.
People have their dogs tethered out all the time, and they spend their whole life on the tether, and a lot of people feel one way or the other about it, and I absolutely understand both sides. But from our aspect, all we can do is enforce ordinances and laws.
Certainly.
So in Onslow County, dogs are allowed to be tethered. However, we do have a well put together ordinance that outlines guidelines to make sure that the quality of life for the animal is as good as it can be while still allowing that. So in the ordinance, the animal is required to have, it's called adequate shelter. What it means is a structure with 4 walls, a roof, a floor. It needs to be weatherproofed and provide protection from the elements and be of an adequate size for the animal to be able to turn around, stretch, and lay down.
Okay.
So that allows for, shelter, protection from the elements for the dog, somewhere where he can get inside, get out of the rain, get out of the snow, get out of the cold, whatever it may be. The animal also has to have fresh water at a reasonable drinking temperature, and that's something that we encounter a lot is, we'll go out to do these welfare checks and we'll see the dog and we'll have a bucket of water, but the water's green, and Carolina summers aren't a joke.
Right.
So you get some of these really hot days out there and the water's really warm, and that's another thing too, is where these are the corrections that need to be made, excuse me. And we work with owners to make these corrections. I always tell people, our number one goal is to improve the quality of life for the animal, to educate people, to get them, in line with the county ordinance, and also really just doing what's best for their animals. So,
doing what's best, for when they take that responsibility on.
Absolutely.
Now, the other thing about springtime, we've talked a little bit about dogs, but there are also cat people in the world.
Oh yes.
And cat people love their cats. So we want to make sure that they're well taken care of as well. So what are some reminders that we should have?
So in Onslow County, of course, it's not a secret to many people that there is a very large population of wild or feral cats all over the county. And this time of year especially, it's getting into the kitten season where the litters start having, and we'll start getting a lot of calls about people finding litters of kittens in the bushes or under a shed over here or in this place or that place. So for people who own cats, for their own cats, my biggest recommendation around here is keep your cats inside. Indoor cats, I think, around here is the only way to really keep your pet safe. And the reason is because we have, so many wild cats around here. If your domestic cat is outside, they run the risk of getting into fights, of catching illnesses from these other cats, that aren't necessarily vaccinated or fixed or anything like that. So I think the safest option, in Onslow County is really to keep your cats inside. Cats are, just like dogs, they're required to be kept on, the owner's property. And a lot of that really is for the welfare of the animals as well. As far as the feral cats go and the wild cats around here, the best solution, especially this time of year, as I mentioned, we're going to start seeing a lot of kittens. The best thing I can tell people is, when you see the kittens, look at them a little bit, they're adorable, and then leave them be. Leave them right there. And the biggest reason is, there's a lot of people, we get a lot of calls that say, oh, they found these kittens, they think that the mother abandoned them. And the reality is that during the day, a lot of mama cats, they'll place their kittens somewhere in a bush, or they'll hide them. And then they go out, they scavenge for food, and they hunt, because they still have to eat. And then once they're done, they'll come back and they'll go back to their kittens to be fed and to care for the babies. Another thing too is that a lot of people don't realize is mama cat probably saw you before you got there. She may very well have run off because they're afraid of people. So she may have run off, and she may very well be hiding somewhere nearby watching you. And honestly, the best outlook for a lot of these kittens is to leave them there, let the mama come back and tend to them, because we do our best. We work with a lot of fosters at the shelter. A lot of our staff at the shelter fosters and will take in, dozens of kittens a year and bottle feed them and try to get them up. Unfortunately, there's only so many resources.
Right.
So when we take up a lot of these resources and then, we still have more coming in, we do the best we can with them, but not as good a job as their mother could do.
What a great point. And that she'll tend to them, but then the best thing we all need to remember is the importance of spaying, neutering.
Absolutely.
Those our cats, and you all have wonderful programs and initiatives. So we've talked a lot about public safety, yes, and we've talked about responsible pet ownership and what it means to care for both cats and dogs, but also. And I say cats and dogs because they're the dominant, although we know that there are folks who have pet chickens and ducks. And
we deal with a lot of livestock, from chickens, pigs, horses, all of these different things, we handle them all. So.
Now, the other thing we need to remember is, especially the springtime, I mean, you know, little kids are just naturally attracted to kitties and puppies and dogs and cats, but we need to take responsibility as well and remind our children of some public safety.
Absolutely.
You know, talk a little bit about things that you would tell kiddos about if they see a stray dog or a stray cat.
So I think the biggest thing, and you know, I tell kiddos, but I tell to the adults alike, you know, when you see stray pets, the best assumption is not that they're friendly. We hope that they're friendly, and I feel like a lot of the times, you know, they usually are, especially, you know, if you're in a neighborhood and maybe it's your neighbor's dog that you recognize, you know, you saw them out playing with them before. But, you know, approach it with a healthy sense of cautiousness about it. You know, when you see a dog, you don't want to run up and grab it, because at that point, even a friendly dog, you know, if it doesn't know you, if it's scared, I mean, if somebody runs up and grabs you on the street, you're going to be a little upset about it too.
A little bit.
So the biggest thing is, you know, be cautious about them. If they're friendly, you know, give us a call. We can pick them up if you wanted to hold on to them. You know, nobody's required to, of course. And then at that point, you know, hopefully we can get them reunited.
Very good. And, you know, I think that that's certainly when you all are picking up stray dogs or cats, that's always the goal. So is that idea of reunification. So making sure that your pet has their tags,
Yes.
or chipped, or, you know, some way of identifying their home.
Yeah, absolutely. Along with the rabies vaccine is another requirement, is that any animal have a animal with a rabies vaccine have a collar with that rabies tag affixed to it, and that helps us get them home, because, you know, from that rabies tag, although it doesn't have a name or an owner's phone number on it, that record exists somewhere. So if we did it, you know, I can look it up right in our system. If it's a local vet, I can contact that local vet, and they're cooperative with us, you know, to get us the information to get the pet home. Microchips are a fantastic thing. I tell people all the time, you know, before any dog goes in my vehicle, I scan it for a microchip. And if I can find that microchip and get it right back to the owner, I would much prefer to do that. You know, it saves me the time and the paperwork of having to intake the dog at the shelter. It saves the dog the stress of being in the shelter.
Sure.
And it saves the owner the money, you know, because it costs money to reclaim, and the fees aren't really terribly exorbitant, but of course, you know, it costs us money to maintain the shelter and that as well, so there is a fee associated with reclaim.
And sometimes they just get away, just that quick.
Absolutely,
and if you can
yeah.
get them back home.
Yeah, and that's another thing I tell people, you know, is if you see a dog one time loose and you get them back to the owners, never think twice about it. You know, dogs get loose. I mean, it happens. You know, maybe there's a hole in your fence you didn't see. Maybe your dog learned a new trick of how to dig under the fence.
New trick.
Maybe he saw a squirrel and decided he wanted it to be his friend and ran off on it. You know,
Big.
it happens, and it's part of pet ownership. When cases like that do come up, it's always best recommendation too. You know, look on Facebook. The Facebook groups around here are very active with lost pets, especially local neighborhood and community groups. The Onslow County Animal Services website also has a link right there to report a lost or found pet, and that notifies everybody in the shelter, from our road officers to our shelter staff and our kennel staff, to be on the lookout for that animal. You know, if it comes in, if somebody finds it and brings it to us, you know, we can look and say, hey, I recognize that dog from the picture we got in the email, you know. And that helps us reunite animals as well. But yeah, that is our number one goal, is to, you know, avoid having to bring them into the shelter, if it's possible to avoid it and get them home, and ultimately just to get them home.
You know, Greg, I'm so glad that you brought up the idea of the Facebook and the website. There
Yeah.
is, again, and you and I talked about this a little bit off camera, there is a misconception or an old-fashioned notion of what an animal services animal control officer does. And you've taken this time with us today, you've really kind of dispelled that notion of that old school idea of the, I hate to even say it, dog catcher.
Yes, ma'am.
But it's the modern idea, and the idea that you all use your website, use your Facebook presence, and your place in the community, because it's about public safety and the safety of
Yeah, and
of
the
those
safety and welfare
pets.
of the animals as well, absolutely, yeah. And that's, like I said, that's our number one goal, is public safety. Immediately after that, you know, like I said, is the welfare of the animals. And I was talking before about, you know, we do a lot of welfare checks, and we investigate, you know, issues of cruelty and that. And you know, sometimes we get some frustrated citizens. You know, they'll call about something, and they'll be upset that they have the sense, or they feel like nothing's been done about it. And I try to tell people, you know, honestly, is my number one goal is to improve the welfare of the animal, and that's not necessarily something that can be accomplished by taking the animal away. you know, especially if an animal maybe not be socialized, you know, especially, you know, some dogs that have been tethered their whole life, you know, maybe, you know, they were never socialized, maybe they're not friendly with other dogs, you know, and my goal in that case, you know, the best outcome for them is to stay with the owner, and we'll work with the owner to improve the quality of life and improve the situation for the animal, rather than taking the pet away. And then, you know, at the end of the day, at that point, you know, I feel like some of the time all we've done is really take somebody's pet away when we could have had a better outcome for them. So that's always our goal.
Well, I think that is the best possible way in which we could share what you do on behalf of the community, on behalf of pets and public safety. So I thank you for taking the time today and sharing this with us, and we look forward to future visits with you, Greg.
Absolutely, I look forward to it.
Welcome back to Onslow County Today, and joining us now is Victoria Reyes with Onslow County Public Health, the Onslow County Health Department, and we're so glad that you're here.
Thank you for having me, Lisa.
Victoria, it goes without saying, although we're going to say it, it has been quite the 2 years.
Yes, it definitely has been, and we're so happy to, you know, be kind of dying down on the COVID talk a little bit. I mean, we still definitely know that COVID is a thing, and we're still continuously doing the education in our community to bring people through our doors, because we definitely know that we need to increase vaccination. That is a form of prevention, and increasing vaccination in our community will help us as these new COVID variants, or, you know, because COVID is still out there.
Right, so we've talked about that. We've watched, and you have been so diligent working with public information and working with our health team and our communications team and our COVID response team that have, you know, worked so well together in making sure that we've shared with each stage of COVID, each phase within this last 2-year period, those changing responses. And everything has really had to be in the moment.
Definitely. It's been changing. I mean, there's, you know, the guidance on the national level changes. That changes the state and locally as well. So we know our community has seen a lot of back and forth from us. But we're here to regain their trust and continuously be there with them to educate and provide awareness on COVID and other public health matters.
You know, I think that, you know, you said regain their trust, but I think that you all have been extraordinary. I think that you've been there holding our hand through something that is unprecedented. You know, that phrase is not one that we use lightly. There's not been anything like this, and you all have been there with us this whole way. And despite, or maybe because of those challenges, you all have come out on the other side 2 years later with lots of growth opportunities and lots of new friends and partners in the community. Talk about how you forged those new bonds.
Oh yeah, so I really do hope, our community feels the same way. We do feel like we have gained so many new community partners, that so many individuals in our community have their eyes open and want to get ahead of any public health situations before they occur. So we've talked with partners about a health equity group, our health equity leadership group. So we have that group meeting every month. And we talk about not only COVID, but other ways that we could continuously reduce barriers in our community.
Well, you know, let's talk about that. We would think that, you know, throughout COVID, for example, you know, vaccinations were free and testing was free, and people, you know, we gave that information, but there are still barriers oftentimes that we don't really think about. Sometimes, you know, it would shock us that people don't have access to the kind of care that we would hope that they would get.
Of course. I mean, we learn things like language barriers were a huge issue. We were sharing information, but were we sharing it in English and in Spanish? And then even if we shared Spanish information, we have a large population that does not read. So we have a large population that might not read English, and we have a large population that might not read Spanish. So things like that. How are we getting the information out to our community? What platforms were we using? And then it got even deeper of, oh, well, the kids aren't on Facebook anymore. That's for the adults. They're on Instagram, they're on TikTok, so we really needed to target the message, make sure ask ourselves, who are we reaching? Who needs to know this information? Are we doing our due diligence to our community? Are we sharing other groups that are having these outreaches in locations that might be more accessible because the public transit area might float through there? So it was a lot more than just opening our doors and saying, hey, come get your vaccine. It's making sure that we educate, we reduce barriers, we work with partners, and we work with those community partners that the community trusts, because again, this was a politicized disease that, some individuals did feel like they didn't know where to turn.
And maybe didn't feel comfortable or feel safe in accessing that care, even though we said, come on over.
Oh yeah, of course. That we heard that, and we continue to hear that as well.
Fantastic. Now this is certainly, we're here to also talk about Public Health Week. And really we want to talk about what it means to commemorate Public Health Week, but also why it's so important this year, because it is really addressing those questions that we sort of unearthed during the COVID process.
Yes, so Public Health Week is April 4th through the 10th, and this is an initiative by the American Public Health Association. And the theme this year is Public Health is Where You Are, which that's so true. After COVID, after these past 2 years, public health really is, it impacts our day-to-day. The water we drink, the food we eat, the restaurants we're at, the people who we sit next to and engage with, the information that goes out there, it just impacts so much. And the daily themes really focus on kind of what we're seeing right now.
Now, you mentioned daily themes. Certainly, we've had this proclamation declaring Public Health Week, and you all will be commemorating that this first week in April. So let's talk a little bit about how in this weekly commemoration that you'll be doing things.
Definitely. So this April 4th through the 8th, because Saturday and Sunday we'll definitely have some social media posts go out, but we're going to be doing stuff internally. One of the days is Public Health Workforce, so we want to really show our workforce and our team that they've just experienced so much through the last 2 years. We want to just show our appreciation, so we do have some fun stuff planned to include a sweet treat, a walk together, along with some physical fitness, some possibly yoga, there to also share with them that a lot of the public health initiatives that we want to stress to the community, like the importance of physical activity, that starts at home. So that starts under our roof.
How great, because we've spent the last 2 years, you all have spent the last 2 years taking care of everybody else. Yeah. And you've sometimes forgotten to look in the mirror and take care of self. And it's just like that airplane advice. Who do we put the oxygen mask on first? We need to put it on ourselves first so we can tend to others. And maybe we've not done that as much in the last 2 years.
Maybe just a little. I know, it's been difficult. It really has, but we have a great team at the Onslow County Health Department that is really passionate about what they do, and they work so hard, and we're excited to celebrate with them and educate the community about each day and what those themes are. So they range from climate change to health equity to mental wellness. So it's a lot of good information that we're going to be sharing with the community.
Well, first things first, celebrating those public health workers and saying, this time's for you, thank you for all that you've done. And then going and doing what you all do best, which is taking care of the community. When you talk about those themes, can you elaborate a little bit? Because some people might not even make that connection, and yet public health is all of those things.
Definitely. So one of the days includes mental wellness. So that is something that I know we're really looking at as far as internally. Why we might include the yoga here soon is just taking care of oneself, being mindful of oneself, and that is the foundation of your own health and better health outcomes. Climate change, health equity, as I mentioned, health equity is something that we are focused on. We have a monthly meeting, our health equity leadership group, that meets once a month, and we talk about ways to improve accessibility in our community. That is also ties very directly into our strategic plan as well. So we're excited about all the days and all of the different themes and ways that we could educate internally and externally.
Well, this is a perfect way to see all of the things. Maybe we've been a little focused on the last 2 years, but this is a way for the public, for the community to really see all of the ways in which public health serves our community members. You do a great job with your social media, with your website. Direct folks to how they can find you on those platforms.
Yeah, so the community could go to our Facebook page, Onslow County, I think that one, Onslow County Health Department is our Facebook page. Instagram is Onslow County Public Health. We also have a Twitter, so we try a Twitter and a LinkedIn, and we try to stay pretty active and engaged with our community. We also do have a active website as well, so you could go onslowcounty.health.gov, and so that's where you can find information on any events, on any public health activities, other information that the community might need.
Well, fantastic. Is there anything before we kind of close out that you want to make sure that you stress again to the viewers about Public Health Week and really what Onslow County Health Department's mission is ultimately?
I think my biggest stress is that, when we are doing any community outreach or engagement, come and see us, come and participate. That's what keeps us going. I have really great health educators that love to be in the community, and we want to keep doing this type of work. And we want to see more individuals come by the health department or come by our booth whenever we're around.
Fantastic. Well, we'll be on the lookout for you, and realizing Public Health Week is about, again, sharing what you all do, but let us use this also as an opportunity for me and for those who have just benefited from everything that you all have done to say thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Onslow County Today, and joining us now is Melissa Huffman with Onslow County Cooperative Extension. Melissa, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
You know, it is springtime, and it is hard not to talk about agriculture in eastern North Carolina in Onslow County. During this time of year, this is your peak season.
This is a really busy time, not just for myself, but for the farmers out in our community, definitely.
And things are getting ready. You know, this is all about preparation. And with preparation comes a lot of activity that maybe, especially if you're new to eastern North Carolina, you're not used to seeing. Maybe there are things in fields that you didn't know was there. Maybe there are vehicles on the road that you've never seen before. So we're going to talk a little bit about being aware of the farmers who are working on our behalf in the community and what that means.
That's right. So this time of year is a busy time. Farmers are getting out, getting their fields ready. We're ready for new growth. Everyone's excited, about their house plants at home and their yards. They're ready to start cutting the grass. but the farmers are out in much larger equipment getting their fields ready. So that's something that is really important. You'll start to see this time of year more traffic on the road.
And by that you mean, you know, these are large vehicles, and you might think, well, why is he, you know, why are they out on the main road?
Yes.
But there's travel time between fields for farmers.
So most of the farmers in our area have a short distance to travel, but they will get on our main roadways. And one of the things, I did bring this, I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware. This is a slow moving vehicle placard. And what it means is if you see this, slow down, be patient, take a break, don't get distracted, don't be on your phone texting, and really you want to stay back a good distance, because the equipment, the tractors that are on the road normally can only go about 25 miles per hour. And they're trying to get to work just like you are. They're trying to get to the fields and get home safely so they can be with their families.
Now you mentioned that they're on their way to work, and so when we think about a farmer's day, it is sun up to sundown.
That's right.
When really should we be seeing the increased traffic?
So about the same time that you're going to work,
Okay.
right? So plan accordingly, you know, give yourself 10 or 15 extra minutes. But normally in the mornings is when they get up and they're trying to get to their fields, and they're going to work as late as they can, as long as daylight's still available, and then they'll be heading home.
And with that, I mean, it's been a long day for everybody. And, you know, we want to, again, be respectful of that space.
That's right. And, you know, in North Carolina in recent years, 82% of farm equipment crashes involve non-farm equipment vehicles. So people not paying attention, running into the back of a tractor or a combine or something like that. So it's not just for the safety of the farmers, but it's also for the safety of our citizens in the community.
Okay.
And farmers will try to get, if they're on a 2-lane road, they can't easily just pull off the side of the road. They're trying to find a safe place that they can get their equipment over and not cause more issues. So.
I mean, when you look at one of the vehicles that they have to drive, you know, it's precarious, and so they want to, as you say, they want to stay safe and they want to keep you safe.
That's exactly right.
Now, the other thing we want to be mindful of is literally our routes are changing. As we drive by, we'll see crops that are different, things that are growing, and that also means wildlife is changing somewhat. I mean, if when we get into the dense corn season and that corn is high, we might also see an increase in deer population in that area where
Very
we're traveling.
much. Fortunately, unfortunately, the deer love our crops that we grow in this area. So yes, when you see fields with crops in them, especially soybeans or corn fields, be on the lookout for wildlife as well, for sure.
Okay. And also, what about, Melissa, just the curiosity? I know I see in the fall, folks love cotton fields.
Yes.
It looks it's the closest we get to snow a lot of times,
Right.
when it's all white like that. But talk about the fact that because your job is row crop agent.
Right.
So talk about why we need to also be respectful of those fields.
Sure. So somebody owns that land, or that belongs to somebody, the crops belong to that farmer. Most of them really don't mind. If somebody wants to pull off the side of the road safely and go into a cotton field and get their pictures taken, most of them, if somebody calls and asks me and then I call the farmer, they're like, yes, you don't even have to ask. It's just not driving out through a field, you know, make sure that you're not destroying the crops if you're going to go out there.
And maybe we don't even realize because, you know, it might just be green,
Right.
or it might appear to be empty right now.
Right.
But perhaps there's been seed spread or fertilizer or other chemicals that we need to be aware of, that we don't just need to traipse into the field.
Right, that's right. That's definitely 100%. So again, that belongs to somebody, even if the field is empty, a farmer is leasing that land. So
All right.
be very respectful of it, please.
So safety first with farm
Yes.
equipment, being
Yes.
aware of our farmers who are on the roadways right now,
Yes.
increased traffic, then changing crops themselves, all things that we should be aware of, especially in the springtime.
That's right. That's right.
Now, you also come bringing messages from your farmers market and your master gardeners, because you also have some events coming up.
Yes, so we've got 2 events, and it sounds like April 23rd is going to be a really popular weekend in Onslow County,
Yes.
which is great. This is the time of year you want to get families out doing things in the community. So on April 23rd, we've got our farmers market grand opening. They'll be open from 8 to 12 over at the Cooperative Extension office. And the farmers market building is right beside us. And then also that same day, between 8 and 1, our Master Gardener volunteers are going to be offering a plant sale as well as classes. So
Okay.
people can learn how to grow certain crops in our area.
Fantastic. You know, we know that we've had a number of conversations that over the last 2 years, if we're all staying home, we've sort of looked and hearkened back to doing more of our own planting and being mindful about what we eat and where our food comes from. All of these things are what you all speak to every day,
Every day.
at Cooperative Extension. Now, Melissa, finally,
Yes.
I never have such noisy guests on Onslow County today. You've brought some friends with you.
We did. Would you like to hold one?
Absolutely. Oh, baby. Okay.
And
There we go. It's all right.
so
Who do you have with us?
we have, these are chicks that we're raising for the Coastal Plains Chicken Project.
Okay.
So we've got 4-H youth in the community that are raising either layers, so chicks that are raising them to produce eggs.
Eggs.
And then we've got broilers that are going to be your meat birds. And kids will take them, they're raising them, and then on April 26th, we're going to have the Coastal Plains Chicken Show. So
One
they
more
will
time.
show the Coastal Plains Chicken Show
Okay.
on April 26th. And
All
that's going to be
right.
held in Lenoir County.
All right. So chickens right here, 4-H'ers right here in Onslow County.
That's right.
Will raise these chicks.
Yes.
And the thing is, so when we're producing this show is the end of March, prepping for April, this little creature right here is going to get pretty big in the next month. Well,
Yes, so our meat birds kind of grow quickly, and that's their job. That's what they're bred to do.
okay. So right here at springtime, Easter time, what better way than to look at some peeps, right?
Yes.
So these are beautiful, but it's such an important educational
Yes.
tool for these young people.
Definitely. Anytime you can get kids involved in agriculture, I'm a huge fan of that. They can learn about life cycles, learn about responsibility, taking care of, other things besides themselves.
Right, right.
And that's one of the good things that we do with our 4-H department as well.
Well, this is fantastic. So, farm safety,
Yes.
being aware of the crops, big event, and of course, the Coastal Plain Chicken Show. And we thank you for being here, bringing these special guests with us today. Because it's springtime. And this is the story of Eastern North Carolina and agriculture. So, Melissa,
right.
thank you for what you do on their behalf.
Thank you very much.
And thank you. Thank you, as always, for joining us for Onslow County today, and a very special thank you to each of our guests. It is springtime in Onslow County, a time for rebirth, renewal, a renaissance, if you will. And it is a great time to get out and explore your Onslow County today. We'll see you next time.